Good. Welcome to the Pikine Diaspora, which is a diaspora radio for all communities, African, Asian, European, African, and African American.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate you having me on and having some of the Bronx Council of the Arts on.
Thank you, Leronn. And we know, Leronn, you are a curator, and then you are an editor, and you involved in a lot of cultural things. Before we go any further, I would just like to ask you to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, I'm a professor. I teach African American Studies at Lehman College in the Bronx, and also teach at NYU, New York University. And I am an editor for Callaloo Journal, and I am a curator for the Bronx Council on the Arts. And so I do a lot of different things.
So that's
a lot of different things. Yeah.
That's good. Leronn, this show that we are going to have soon, which is going to open, is going to be like a great show. Can you please tell us a little bit about the show and how the artists will select it?
Well, Bronx Africa is really the exhibition Bronx Africa is really a response to just really trying to bring people together, and specifically trying to bring the different communities, different African communities together, and really let artwork speak for the individual lives from these communities, because a lot of people don't understand that the Bronx has one of the biggest populations of people, of African people and people of African descent in New York and in the United States. And so, and a lot of people don't recognize that there are so many different African communities from the continent that exist in the Bronx. And so the exhibition is a way of really letting people know about these communities, but also connecting everyone through so many different kinds of cultures. And here's visual art, so many different kinds of cultures that come together in the borough and as an extension into the world itself. Was that clear enough? Was that good?
Yes, you're clear. Okay, clear enough. The Bronx is culturally really diverse and culturally mixed. And what is sometimes impossible in Africa is possible in the Bronx, because in one community you can see an African from Togo, from Ivory Coast, from Senegal, from South Africa. They all live together in one neighborhood. This is how diverse the Bronx is. And can you tell me, please, what do you think attracts all the African immigrants to the Bronx?
Well, the thing is that there is so many different kinds of ways of how to be African. And when you think of the Bronx and you think of what African identity is, it's something that is always taking shape. It's something that is always between ancestry and the question of how to be here in the now, right? And so, African identity is something that needs to be discussed and explored. And it also needs to be shared with the world. And so the artists for the show, the majority of them come from the Bronx, but majority of African descent, and they all have these very distinct individual voices that connect globally, right? And I think it's very important that we emphasize that there's a global connection to, when you talk about African identity, it's a global identity, and that's something as a curator I really wanted to emphasize with this exhibition.
That's a very good point. And then, can you please tell us, how were the artists selected for that show?
Well, it was an open call. The Bronx Council on the Arts serves the Bronx, and it serves artists in the Bronx. And so what we did, and if people are artists out there, you really need to connect with the Bronx Council on the Arts and go to the website and just really pay attention to many of the programs and many of the opportunities we have for artists living in the Bronx. And so we did an open call, and we put it up on our website, and we sent it to our mailing list. And we had so many different artists reply to that open call with ideas about how their work could be included in the show. And as a curator, what I did is that I went down this really long list of artists And I just look for very unique voices, people from all around the world. People, coming from many different kinds of perspectives and people doing many different kinds of work. And I said, what would happen? The question for me is, what would happen if I include this group of people? What would these voices together? It's like a chorus, right? You have different voices. You have sopranos and altos and baritones. What would it be like for all of these voices to be together in an exhibition? And so I just looked at the work and I tried to make something that actually spoke to each other, but also had very distinct voices. And I'm really proud of the artists I selected, but it began with an open call through the Bronx Council on the Arts.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you've been mentioning like the voice and all those things, because we know that Africa is a country of 54 countries, is a continent of 54 countries, and over 1,000 languages are spoken over there. It means, yeah, when people think of Africa like a country, but just like global, it's like sometimes crazy.
It is crazy. It is. Yeah. It is, and it may sound really crazy to say, but I don't think that a lot of people think of or understand that Africa is so large and that it's a continent made up of so many different countries and so many different kinds of people. And so, for me, whatever we can do, right, whatever we can do to actually expose people to the world, and especially to the idea of Africa as being 2.5 times the size of the United States, right? And actually being made up of so many different countries, you have so many different kinds of people and languages, like you said, different kinds of voices and cultures. And so I think the exhibition is one important way to sort of bring people together and have people be united around this idea of cultural diversity that Africa represents.
Yeah, so the cultural diversity is one of the wealth of Africa, and I'm sometimes very proud of the curators who are really focused on that. Because everywhere around the world now, people are showing African art. Right now in the Guggenheim in Barcelona, they have a show called Making Africa. And recently in Paris, they have like an African art fair. And they have another African art fair in South Africa, and they're having it like in London. So what is it that all these young curators are involved in showing like African cultural wealth around the world?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is an extension of the idea that within just in the global landscape and the shifting in the global economy, Africa is a continent with so much potential moving into the future, but there's so much that needs to be done in terms of the political realities and the ways in which the world can help empower Africa, and the ways in which Africa has the potential and is empowering itself, right? And so this idea of all these curators around the world in London and all over the world who are interested in African art comes from people wanting to understand from the artists, right? Because we're talking about art here. People want to hear from the artists in terms of what their realities are, and can these realities help us understand the power of Africa moving into the future? What kinds of voices come from the continent, and how can we actually envision Africa as a global power, as in a very important and diverse body of voices in the world.
Which is good because, when we talk about Africa, a lot of people think only, when we talk about African artists, a lot of people think only it's like Africans who were born in Africa. But we have also the African Americans who really work hard, like to improve and show African art.
Right.
And we also have some other people of non-African descent who are all the time in Africa, like white people working like on African art too. And I sometimes ask to a lot of people, what does it take to be like an African artist?
Yeah. See, that's tricky.
Yeah, it's a tricky one.
Right.
It's tricky because sometimes my point is, should the African artist should be living in Africa, Or should he be eating African food every time? Or should he be wearing like African clothes? Or should he have like African father and African mother? So it's like really confusing. What does it take to be an African artist?
Right. I think more or less it's about the question you asked, or the kind of question you asked. So if you were to ask, are you African artists of African descent, or it's a really tricky one because it gets down to how people define racial identity often. Because if you have generations of white people born on the African continent, they themselves call themselves African, right? Because it's a nationalistic identity, right? But if you understand African identity as blackness, then what defines blackness? But in terms of how I define what African identity is, it's usually people of African descent. But race is not genetics, right? So when we talk about African phenotypes and the culture, it's becoming tricky in the future, and as the idea of African identity becomes more popular in the art world, there's going to be more money around sponsoring exhibitions and cultural events around African identity. And I do see this question. You asked a really brilliant question, and I do see this question of what defines African identity becoming a big one in the future.
Yes, and it is really, and I think it's going to be like a great job for artists to make people learn more about African art and know about African art. Because I remember when I first came over here with my broken vase painting, and I was living in New Hampshire. Yeah, and the first gallery I got in and showed my portfolio, the guy was looking at my portfolio and see, wow, is this like African art? I was like, yes. And he was like, wow, it's too Afrocentric. I was like, yes, and he kept on going, well, it's too African. I was like, yes, and wow, it's too tribal. I mean, look at all these labels just for one kind of art.
Right. You know? Right, yeah. So it was like no on each level, right? It's too African, it's too tribal, it's too... Well, the Africa is often carried, Africa is often a idea about the person who wants to define it, right? So by a person saying it's too African, for that person to say something that's too African means that they don't agree in their personal politics. They don't agree with something that they're seeing and what you do, right? So, you actually being African, you may see it one way, but the person who's looking at it may say, well, I don't like this, I don't like that, and that's up to their personal politics. But, ideally, you're right, it's kind of absurd. Sometimes when people say something is too African or too, like what exactly does that mean, right? And it can be very upsetting. But, for me, it extends to how people understand what Africa is. And so in the minds of many people, unfortunately, Africa is just, tribal, or it's not modern. And then for some people, it's something else. And so it really depends on the person asking the question. But, too often the person asking the question is in a position of power to define what is African, and they're doing it in a very wrong way. And it could be very upsetting. I'm sure it was upsetting to you.
Yes, it is. And looking at the name of the artist, I've seen like Leila Amutala Leronn, who is also a photographer, and then she recently had a show at Mokada. She did a good documentary about the Biafra in Senegal. She's all the time in Africa.
Ibu.
Yeah, and also Oti Bay, who is also Nigerian American, And also we have Janet Goldner, who's all the time in Bamako, and she does like wonderful welding, wonderful work. Yes,
Yeah.
And this once again show how diverse and how rich, how culturally rich the Bronx is.
Ibu, we have a 347 caller also on the line. He's
okay. She's welcome. Okay.
Yeah, you can let them introduce themselves. 347.
Hello, hi. How are you?
he's not answering. I don't know who that, but he or she is on the line, and we Dr. Deirdre.
She's among our guests. She's from the Bronx Council of the Art, or one of the organizers of the show.
Okay.
Is it Deirdre?
Okay, maybe she'll be back then. She's still on the line, though.
Yeah. No?
Yeah. Or Dr. Faye?
Dr. Faye, do you have something to ask to Dr. Leronn, please?
Well, yes, Dr. Lawrence, how you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Nangadef. Well, Nangadef means that how you doing? Well, I'm going to jump in here. I'm probably the least rich in language and arts and craft and what have you here. But coming from the land of giants that I call Africa,
yes,
okay, that's a lot of things that when you say African, everything explodes, because I remember a big Rastafarian and part Mutabaruka saying that New York is so confusing or complex that you have to say it twice. New York, New York. Right?
Yeah.
So this is just Africa, because the diversity, the melting pot, the Supukanja in New York, it is amazing. And I'm really glad to learn today that Bronx has the richest, the most number of black. I thought it was something Harlem or something, but either way, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I really cannot say nothing but saying that Africa is for everybody. Because when people say about African American, what comes to mind is a black person from African descent living in America.
Yeah.
If you get John Doe, who is a white man, who was born in Senegal or Ghana or what have you, and come back to America, and he's an African American, but he's still white.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So you talk about definition of origin belonging is just complicated, but what you guys doing right there, it just throw the anchor or the rope to people to try to see if you can bring him on the beach.
Yeah.
By connecting the bridge between America and Africa.
Yeah.
Just like my nonprofit organization is doing, it's called Africa Bound Corporation. And I think all this is wonderful, and what you're trying to do definitely will make Picasso know that the cubism he was doing, he all did to Africa, and Africa need to be recognized from African perspective.
Yeah,
I think that's what you guys are trying to do, and I thank you for that.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. You know, the exhibition is really one voice amongst many voices. I mean, there are so many community organizations in the Bronx and in New York that assist people from the continent when they, as they immigrate, and there are cultural organizations that really want to expand on the ideas and the culture that comes from New York's African communities. And, Bronx Africa and the Bronx Council of the Arts is one thing among many, but it's a very important thing. It's a very important show, to the extent that hopefully, people will be able to see it. It opens on February 3rd. The website, the Bronx Council of the Arts website, gives you more information. There are panels and public programs and things like that. But hopefully, people who see the exhibition will be inspired to actually do something on their own, or start making artwork, or really think about how we all are connected. But specifically, when you talk about the Bronx, a lot of people don't understand how rich and culturally diverse the Bronx is, because Often the Bronx, when you think about it in terms of the stereotypes, the Bronx is often stereotyped as a place that is not hospitable. But when you walk the streets of the Bronx, when you walk the streets of Upper Manhattan, and I would even extend this to Harlem, you see that the Bronx and Upper Manhattan, that it's so diverse and it's so welcoming. I mean, it's really, there is no real reality. The food, African food, African clothing, the different languages you hear all have inflections of African presences. And, Bronx Africa is just being honest about African presences in New York and African communities in New York. And, these communities need to have more voice artistically, politically, and Bronx Africa is just one small but important step toward the empowering the voices of people of African descent in New York. As New York transforms and New York changes, and you said New York, right? So Africa, New York, right? So as Africa, New York becomes more visible, and it should move to the fore in terms of culture.
Ibu, I wanted to say a few words about what Ron, explained, because I heard him said about talk about the global power of Africa. Because last time I went to the African Burial Ground Memorial Monument, but I had another approach of Africans living in the United States, because I realized that Africans built this country, because that monument is something that everybody should go and visit. It's in downtown Manhattan, the African Burial Ground, which is one of the most important monuments in the United States right now. So if you come, guys, and bring up like a Bronx Africa show, so it's something like I try to connect to that history, which will revive the things Africans did here, and then to build this country. That's why Africans also, they have their words. They have their words in this, and the words must be so powerful. So, and we know that art is something we go through to reach out, in different goals. You see? Right. Yeah. So we really appreciate this kind of organization. This Africa Bronx show is something truly meaningful. And we will follow it up.
Yeah. There needs to be more dialogue. There needs to be more talking. Oh, Deirdre.
Yes.
Yeah. Somebody's. Yeah.
How are you?
Hi, Deirdre. How are you?
Good. Happy to be with you.
Okay, thank you. And we are glad to have you over here, Deirdre.
The show sounds wonderful. I've been listening in, and we're just so delighted to be able to bring this project into life.
Well, that's so wonderful. We are happy this is taking place in the Bronx. And the title itself is really, it's like Bronx Africa. The title has like a magnetic power.
Yes, I think it does. We've been trying to bring this project to fruition for more than 2 years. And again, I just can't tell you how thrilled we are to just be a little bit on the pulse of, the phenomenon that's happening here in our borough.
Deirdre, can I ask you something before we go any further? Can you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yes, I'm Deirdre Scott, and I'm the Executive Director of the Bronx Council on the Arts.
Okay.
And, BCA, that's the handle we're known by, is most renowned for providing grants and programming for Bronx artists, and also for supporting emerging artists, advocating for contemporary themes and movements in the arts and culture, and also we generally deliver almost $250,000 in cultural arts grants to artists, individual artists, and cultural projects throughout the Bronx. And this is one way that we want to be able to introduce ourselves in the community, and also get in touch with a lot of the great talent that we have here, and kind of uncover people who are underknown and under-recognized.
Yes, that's really great. It's a powerful job, and it's a very noble job, because art is something that wins if everybody or everything fails.
Indeed.
We appreciate this show, which brings back a lot of things, and which gathers like communities. And we know how rich, the Bronx is culturally rich. It's a cultural wealth, and to put this show together, I think this is going to bring out a lot of positiveness in the community.
Well, we do look forward to a rippling effect, and this is just, one of many ongoing efforts that we strive at. And, when communities evolve and change, this is a permanent thing. It's not, a one-shot. It's we just look at our community kind of in a holistic way, and just want to make sure that we're including as many folks, as possible. So we really work hard at trying to, get the word out and get our support out into the community, onto the streets, so that kind of the wealth of talent that we do have here in our borough gets showcased and also gets involved, and that other folks, other boroughs, other municipalities, other states and countries have a chance to, we want to get on the radar. So I think that this is kind of an important first effort, but we're looking forward to much more as we, all get to know each other and get into the mix.
Yeah, and I recently read an article in the New York Times about the Bronx, like how culturally rich it is and how people cohabit, and all this wealth and all the social environment in the Bronx make it like a community which is going to be like an example in New York City. Can you tell us a little bit about like the cohabitation between like African artists and Spanish people?
Well, it's interesting because everybody's here. A lot of other boroughs, I'll give some examples, like Brooklyn and Queens have a terrific cultural mix, and a lot of influx of people from, all kinds of cultures from across the world. And we're very much the same here in the Bronx. Our borough is one of the first locations that a lot of immigrating cultures, they actually land here in the Bronx. We're certainly a more economically viable community for most people. New York is a wealthy city, and often the economics don't allow everyone to gravitate to one place. So we have a great mix here. Long history of Spanish and Latino cultures, but a lot of the other cultures who are newly immigrating to the United States, often people just don't know who's here and what our mix is. And so this is part of highlighting the range of folks, and also creating fertile ground for the connections that are already going on. I mean, you use the word cohabitating, which is sweet. And but we are cohabitating. We're all living together in the same borough, and this is part of our daily lives. But to be able to highlight the connections and put them up front, and also there's cultural and historically deep connections across cultures, some of which will be highlighted in Bronx Africa, and again, we'll create fertile ground for other people to do projects and to just jump into kind of what's going on and how folks are, mixing and infusing and influencing each other, and the richness that comes from that.
What good do you think this show can do to the community and for artists?
Well, a couple of things. The Bronx Council on the Arts has a lot of different programs and services that we'd like to see grow and in the community. We certainly invite folks to avail themselves of the different professional development and grant-making opportunities that we do have at the Bronx Council on the Arts. People can see those programs on our website at bronxarts.org and can freely, take advantage of that. The majority of our programs are free to the public, so this is really an opportunity for people to really, again, learn from, get involved with, have some fun with us, because we have a lot of fun programs for people of all ages, from young folks to elders. And I'd like to see, more of a mix at our programs. We do really work with everyone. And so I just want all of our communities in the Bronx to feel part of that everyone factor.
Yeah, it is a wonderful thing. And then once again, can you tell us when the show is going to open and where it's going to take place?
Yes. The show is called Bronx Africa. Mm-hmm. It's opening on Wednesday, February 3rd at 5 o'clock p.m. Mm-hmm. at our Longwood Art Gallery at Hostos. It's on the campus of Hostos, which is CUNY, the City University of New York. And that's at 450 Grand Concourse, right on the corner of 149th Street and the Grand Concourse. And it's a big crossroads for buses and subways, so we're very easy to get to. Yes, and in addition to the exhibit, we'll be rolling out a lot of public programs across the life of the show, which will be on display until May 4th. We're giving it an extra long run. And we just invite everyone to come and be with us and to get to know new artists that we're introducing to the community, as well as some friends of DCA that will also be on display. And again, we invite folks to take advantage of the programs of the Bronx Council on the Arts and also our affiliated partners who are, there's several organizations who are giving events and programs simultaneous with the show. You'll see a calendar of that unfolding on our website, and also we invite, other Bronx-based activity to log into the calendar and also enter your events. Part of what our platform can help do is to spread the word. And for people who are doing projects and programs, if you want some additional attention, we have a huge audience. And we're active on Facebook and Twitter, and we're using the hashtag Bronx Africa to just push as hard as we can to get the word out. And to, there's a lot of noise out there, a lot of things to do. And so we're waving our hands in the air like we just don't care.
And my other question is the Bronx Africa show a yearly event, or is it only one show and it's over?
Yes, it's our first kickoff project. Mm-hmm. We will be, I have to say, the Bronx Council on the Arts, we're a nonprofit, and we have to raise money for every single thing that we do, even turn it on the light. Mm-hmm. So we will be working to, raise funding to continue to program. But, I want to say that this is in marketing terms, like a target exhibition. We're, again, waving a flag big time, just, again, so that we can get on people's radar. But when I talk about asking to see the mix and people in our programs. We don't want to have any group feel like they're standing to the side and we're pointing and saying, hey, you. And this time we are doing that. We're saying, come be with us. But ultimately, people get integrated into all of our programs. So, as things move forward, when we send invites, when we send event announcements, when we post workshops and professional development and say, hey, come apply for a grant, we mean everybody. And so this should be part of a natural, inclusive cultivation type of event. So I'm giving you two answers. Yes, there will be more. There will be more Bronx Africa, but I want to see more in all of our programs. I want to see more in our audiences. I want to see more grants going out into the community. So this is an all-inclusive, come-all event, but at the same time, we're holding very dear to us a very, special community that is here and present and apparent. When I walk out of my door, I see my brothers and sisters at the store, at the bodega, at the local restaurant. So come be with us in our programs.
Ibu, I wanted to ask a question also to Leronn, because this kind of show like Bronx Africa, I think there's something that should be spread around, like New York, for instance, in Brooklyn, in Manhattan, everywhere, because we know that Africans are everywhere in New York City.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it's what I like about this show is educational. It will help the communities understand each other and accept each other better. And that's where Black Power should come from, We Africans and our brothers and sisters here should understand each other better and mingle the cultures, try to make it as much as possible to be the same, so we can use the power of blackness to do the things in the right way. That's why I encourage, this program, and myself, I participate in my way, to make it happen anytime.
Yeah, and I think you're right. There are people, African people all around New York, but what separates this show from a lot of other shows, and I think Deirdre touched on this, is the organization's investment in the community. Atemotan is she's the public programs curator, so it's not just the exhibition, but the public programs are open to the community. And we want people to be invested in the exhibition, the public programs, and the BCA, and join the BCA in general, because there's an investment in the community that is, and the exhibition is an extension of that investment, and that, I think, separates this kind of exhibition, which has a lot of beautiful art, a lot of important art and artists, but it also is an extension of the ways in which an organization is tied to the community versus an exhibition that comes to a museum and then it leaves, but is that institution actually invested in the community that it's getting the artwork from? And I think that's what separates this exhibition from many other exhibitions of African art or that you may see.
Very, very good. It's a good point. Yeah.
Dr. Faye, do you have a question or?
And we have a caller from yes. We have a caller from Canada too. After Dr. Faye, you.
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't have any other question except just to say that I found myself during my first intervention speaking Wolof by saying supukanja. Okay, you guys know what is supukanja. It's just a beautiful, nice Senegalese dish with palm oil and a lot of other things, just like gumbo, that when it's ready with all the colors is so wonderful that you are eating the rainbow.
That's beautiful.
I'm sorry to say that word without telling you what was it, but You guys, you taste and smell and look like Super Kanja, and thank you for that.
That's awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
And then the other thing I would like to mention is that the show is not only in the gallery, but you're also going to have an online show.
Yes, we're going to have an online display. Equally important, trying to, work to push out the exhibit across various platforms. Certainly, we want a portion of it to be available to those who may not be able to make it to the gallery. And also, this helps try to get the sentiment and get the theme out beyond our community, which I think is important for all the reasons that have been mentioned, during our discussion here, helping people to get to know each other more. And, traditionally arts and culture are the ambassadors for a lot of, creating connections across people, across cultures, and across geography. So as much as we're local, we're hoping that a portion of this gets to be global and will move out well beyond our region. There's a lot of difficulties in the world and a lot of tough discussions that are going on right now. And I think that this could be kind of a more chill way for people to get to know each other and get introduced through the art. And there's a really wide array of artistic sensibilities that are going to be, in the gallery. But also, there's a lot of people out there that are seeing things, doing things, making things, creating things that can be shared. And that's why the online aspect and also the social media aspect of it is so important. We, again, go to our website, bronxarts.org, and we're inviting people to share their images, to share their art, to share their thoughts, on the Bronx Africa theme, and to share that online so that there's a groundswell of voices and a groundswell of images and different types of sharing. And, my hope is that this can help to address some of the conversations that are being had on a national and an international level, and help soothe and smooth the way forward for all of us to be together.
Yeah, and this kind of shows there's something that we do to get the young generation ready for the future, because they will have to learn a lot of things. So my question is, are you in touch with the Board of Education so that the students from the public schools are going to be invited for, gallery talks?
We do have connections with the Board of Ed, and we're really lucky to have our gallery situated in a, CUNY campus, because by virtue of our, community network, other people will be attending the show across a lot of different ages. Hostos is a very open campus. They have a lot of programs for children. They have a major performing arts center. So what we're hoping to do is to create opportunities through the kind of synergies and connections that we have out in the community. And part of that is being able to be part of your radio show and other types of outreach that we're trying to do so that we get on the radar of teachers and schools and community organizations and folks who live in housing complexes and the whole range of people. We're hoping that they'll get the word and that they'll come in and visit in the gallery and hang out with us for our first Wednesday's Culture Trolley Nights. That's the first Wednesday of every month. And just become part of the exhibit, become part of the community and part of BCA.
Oh, wonderful. I have a question to Leronn.
Yeah.
How hard was it for you to go through all these applications and check the artists?
Well, everything's a process. Let me just say that. And it's really not just about what I was able to do, but, you know, there's a team of people behind the exhibition that really allowed for this exhibition to be as big as it is, as diverse as it is, and, you know, for everything to run as smoothly as possible. So Juanita Alonso, Kim Vasquez, yeah, you know, I mean, there are people, you know, behind the scenes who are working on this exhibition as we speak, that have helped it be, you know, what it is, and hopefully everything that it will become. So it's not just me, but it's a number of people, including Deirdre and Tim and everyone at BCA behind it.
We're not a large organization.
So, Leronn, will there be African music live? Like Africa, will there be African bands playing live music?
I can't hear the question.
Yeah.
We can't hear the question.
I'm asking if it's gonna be like African bands playing live music during the show. Like,
we're going to have a little bit of music going on. Our opening, we are going to have a DJ as well as Sally Siu, who will be playing beautiful contemporary and traditional choral music. So there'll be a mix of everything from classical to soul and kind of Afrobeat, and a whole big mix for the opening. And then as the programs roll out, we're going to have a multidisciplinary kind of effect going on with everything from hands-on to, you know, food, fashion, and music. So either between BCA or through our program ambassadors, we will be able to present multiple kinds of artistic genres, as much as we can cull from the community or create through BCA. We have also, through Charlie Vasquez, who's the head of our Bronx Writers Center, will be doing a poetry town hall with spoken word and poetry. So we're going to be touching on a little bit of everything as we can, from writing to reading to dancing to music. Our little staff has worked very, very hard, and I really want to, give Longwood with Juanita and Kim their propers, because they have really done a great job in helping us to pull this together, as well as the Bronx Writers Center, and of course our curators at Tim and Leronn have been doing a great job, and really made, the whole project a fun and a pleasure to present.
If I understand well, no artist will be left behind. Everybody going to be included.
Well, we don't like to leave folks behind, but now that this really has, we're doing a big project on a very modest budget, and again, we look forward to coming this way many times, and in a lot of ways, this project allows us to be able to get to know the community more, and to know who's out there, and to have folks who are out there making great stuff to come to us and say, hey, what about me? And that's all part of the process. And we didn't,
right.
This started kind of with a feeling, and with my observations. I live kind of, in the Concord section of the Bronx, and I'm looking at my community around me and saying, hey, there's something in here. And so this is really kind of a first step. Can't claim that we know everything. We're just, courageously kind of coming out and saying, hey, come be with us. And so this is the beginning of something that we look forward to, growing long-term relationships. And we're hoping, that this becomes a model for what other organizations can do to embrace everybody that's in their community. And, for people who know our programs long term, when you walk into any of our programs, it's a little bit of everybody there, and I want to continue to see that. And I don't want to have to say who's missing. No one should be missing, or to feel like they can't be in.
Our friend from Canada, he wants to say something about it, I think. Hello, Papsalu?
Yes.
Yeah, he's from Montreal, Canada.
Yeah, how are you doing?
He was listening.
Yeah, I think that everything goes fine. My participation is just about what you are talking about lately, culturalism. I mean, multiculturalism. The Moazai people we see, Moazai country we see everywhere around the world, like today in the United States, in Canada. But I think that the black people have a kind of connotation, you know. No matter the place who was born, if you are black, you refer to Africa. And some people take pity, you know, compassion of black people, because you think that he came from in a poverty country, in a poor country. And it's a shame, because we have to figure out that until we don't fix this issue, I mean, we don't try to thrive our country, to have a soaring economy, try to have a good food safety, sufficiency, something like that for the security, I mean the safety, everything to show the world that we are strong, because we have all the resources to do that. Yeah. So American people are a bit different because of their story. But if you go in some country like France, even if you were the third or the fourth generation, if you are black people, you have some connotation. You feel you never feel to belong to this country, and you never have more chance to success as native people there.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, I just heard some people who talking about, if you were born in Africa and you are white people, if you go in America, it is different. You can't say I'm an African American people. Of course, you know, in my own, you feel to belong in this country and to be white. And I think that it's really different for black people who was born in Africa and to immigrate in the United States. It's not the same. We have to face up. But I'm sure if we try to develop our country, you know, it will be really different. The misconception we have from black people will disappear. So we have to build our continent. I just can give you an example. They have the North African people, I say Maghrebian people, who don't feel themselves to belong in Africa. And sometimes we have some discussion. I tell them, if you don't belong, you have to create your own continent. Because according to them, they are not African people. They feel to belong in another planet, you know, not in Africa, in another country, in another continent, I mean. And the problem is, she saying that our country, black people country, are very poor. They don't have many resources, I mean human resources, and the economy is not really strong as well. And that's why they have a misconception, some bad conception from us.
Thank you, Papsalu from Canada. So Dr. Leronn gonna, you know, explain some words, you know, about that, because he was talking about the global power of Africa. Okay, Dr. Leronn.
Yeah, thank you so much. You know, I just heard some discussion.
Yeah, he was listening. He was listening and wanted to, you know, to bring a little contribution, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Papsalu from Canada.
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Leronn.
Thank you, Pop Salim, for calling. I think we coming to the end of our show.
Okay.
So, Dr. Faye, do you have something to add to that?
No, just to say that I enjoy everything, and power to you guys for the Harambe.
Mm-hmm.
And we wish you well, and I wish I were there.
Yeah, but
Dr. Faye is from Texas. Dr. Faye is from Texas.
You're in Texas, you know.
I was saying, Dr. Lawrence, I'm right here deep in the heart of Texas. All right. Okay. Peace and blessings, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Brother Sam, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I was just, I know this program, the Bronx Show is Africa Bronx Show is something that, should be taken place in this community all the time, because I like the educational part, bring up our cultures to understand, what we really live is something I really appreciate. And I'll be there, it's the Hub 149 and Grand Concourse. I know the place, Hostess College. So I really appreciate this organization.
Yeah, and then everybody is welcome to the show. It's free. It's not pay-per-view.
Come through, everybody. Come through.
Come through. It's not pay-per-view. The Bronx Art is organizing is free.
Walk right on in.
Yeah. And Deirdre, do you want to say something before we close up? And then we'll give Leronn to conclude.
Terrific. I just want to thank everyone for their attention, and thank you for helping us to get the word out. And we look forward to welcoming everybody to the exhibit and to our programs, and to get information at our website, bronxarts.org, and use hashtag Bronx Africa to help us push it out well beyond. And all are welcome. And again, we're so grateful for the attention and being able to thank everyone for their attention and for helping us to realize a little piece of this dream.
Yeah, and then we're going to be playing the interview on the radio. The podcast is going to be on the radio, and then we're going to spread it in the African community so that the show is going to be like a great success. And then I'm gonna sum up what we said in African language and Wolof for some other listeners.